How's it going, guys? So welcome to a new year. I'm going to look into some of the biggest highlights, the coolest things that happened in PLO in 2021. So this is the first hand. Let's have a look what happens here. We see a raise to 105. So these stakes are a little bit special. We are looking at 1530. This is on ACR. This is actually a blind level that doesn't exist on a lot of other sites. You usually go from 1020 to 2550, which is a 2.5x jump, which is a pretty hefty jump. So it's kind of a nice level in between. 1530, we see a raise, pot size, call, we see a squeeze, and I will just come over the top, obviously with double suited aces. Under the gun, just sticks it in for 1200. This guy also calls 1600. That's sick. After calling 105, just like put in 1600. Let's see what happens. Even though this guy can still come over the top to my right. And he folds. Okay, so this guy to my right probably looking down at a hand like ace, king, king. Especially if not double suited. We will see a lot of players folding here, which is a good idea. And bam! That's how you start the biggest hands. The nuts. Opponent checks. And now the question is, should we shove it in or check back? Because we can't really represent a lot of bluffs, given that this player is already all in. And we would still have to beat this player villain 6 in this hand, essentially. So, I don't know. Let's see what happens. I would say that I probably am just still best off just jamming all in, I guess. And because this guy calls like 1600 after calling 105. Like he probably just calls like any pair and straight draw. And obviously all the flushes. Could also check back and then hope that he jams the turn. The thing though is I think that if I check back and then he checks turn and I jam, it looks more like a trap kind of. 10-9 diamonds for the nuts. Please show me the 10-9 diamonds, team. Yeah, exactly. Please. Show us some little juicers. Okay. All in. Actually, we don't go all in. 840. This is a weird bet because, well, I assume that this player villain 1 is like a pretty big whale because otherwise I think we probably don't use this bet sizing given that there is this other player in the pot already and he obviously is not going to fold because he's all in. We get ripped on. We call. And we're looking down at a $10,485 pot. 3 on the turn. 4 on the river. Are we beat by the straight flush? The answer is no. We're looking down at the king. 10-9-7 and queen. 10-10-4. The straight flush blocker, okay? I mean, look, if you call 1600 pre and you flop a flush in this spot, I mean, what are you going to do, you know? So let's have a look at this next hand. Surprisingly, it's aces again, you know? Like all the people that are like, oh, aces is a hand you always lose with in PLO. It's like, well, not really. Especially if you know how to play it. I mean, there obviously are some big hands you will lose in the process of your career with aces because you just end up building so many super large pots with aces. But your win rate with aces should be around 500 big blinds per 100. So it's like a huge hand, essentially. I mean, anywhere between like 350 to 500 big blinds per 100 should be the win rate with aces in general. And there's like no other hand class that is even comparable to that win rate, basically. So we 3-bet, and who doesn't like to see the min 4-bet out of position while we're holding aces? So we 3-bet to 120. He makes it 205. So you can tell this is probably also not a rec, which brings us back to the topic of it's all about table selection, you know, like what tables you're playing on and not necessarily if you are the best player in the world. So we make it 630. My opponent calls. Flop is queen 5 deuce. This is a pretty solid board, you know, like what kind of hand that clicks it back has me beat now? Like maybe queens, but we have queens already blocked. But in general, my opponent's going to have some sort of like queen high rundown, pocket kings at best, you know, like queen 5, queen deuce, or 5-5 or deuce deuce really shouldn't be in there. So now the only question is, should we pot it or should we go for a smaller sizing? And I think it's a little bit difficult with this hand, you know, like we have no straight draw, like we have no like ace queen 3, ace queen 4. I think with those kind of hands, I would be betting maybe like half pot, but with my specific hand, potting is fine too. Although the thing is, like, we are trying to get all the money from kings, and I think by potting, we're not going to accomplish that. That being said, if my opponent has like a 5, 6, 7, 8, we want to get max value by potting flop and shoving turn. Like, we get into some complicated spots by betting small on the flop and then the turn completing a straight. So he makes it easier for us because he pots. I have no idea what hand would even pot on queen 5 deuce, honestly. Like, what hand is strong enough to pot here that does not want to slow play? Maybe he has a hand like I don't remember this hand, by the way. So maybe he has a hand like ace, king, jack, 5, you know? I have no idea. All in. Opponent calls. Turn is an 8. River is a 7. I mean... Jack 5, 4, 3. Obviously, you know, who didn't see that coming? the open raise and the cutoff, min 4 bet, call the 5 bet. I mean, this was a sick flop actually for this hand. Flop's a pair and an open ender against my overpair. What are the equities on the flop here, guys? What do you guys think? The low rundown wrap. I mean, it was a low rundown wrap-ish kind of hand. He's looking at 54% equity on the flop, you know? So, like, who can blame him for min 4 betting, calling 5 bet? A standard play, another standard play from a stellar opponent. We take it down there. Okay, we see a raise, $175 and a call. We get aces again with the ace high suit. Potted up to 775. Call. Hit me. Bam! That's how you win. That's how you win at PLO, you know? Just flop top set on a dry board. Now, how do we get all the money? Like, how do we get all the money? Check, check. We have a straight blocker, like a straight draw blocker holding a queen. You know, we really want to see a hand like a 10 high rundown with a backdoor flush draw to continue. So we probably go for something along the lines of like a third pot, quarter pot. Yeah, so we go for a quarter, 600. And this guy rips it all in. Thank you, sir. We call. Let's have a look what my opponent has. Ace 10, king, queen. 18% equity. Another almost $10,000 pot. And it looks like we run it twice. And unfortunately for my opponent, doesn't connect. You know, that's the danger of calling squeezes with ace, king, queen, 10. So he faces an open raise and MP sitting in the cutoff, let's say at 100 big blinds. What do you guys think is the default strategy with ace, king, queen, 10 with a queen high suit? Is it, you know, fold, call, 3-bet? I think you cannot really call. You have to 3-bet or fold, basically, PLO 5K, rake structure, MP opens, cutoff solution. So on the right-hand side, we can see the king high suit will go ahead and 3-bet, and a queen high suit is probably also a 3-bet sitting on 77%. And then the ace high suits are much likelier calls. So basically what it comes down to is without this ace high suit, you don't really want to call. You want to 3-bet an MP. So it would be a 3-bet and then fold versus 4-bet instead of a call. And that's, you know, that feels really uncomfortable for a lot of opponents. So they don't end up 3-betting this hand. But because they play so bad against the 4-bet, but it's not a multi-way hand really. So you're using it kind of as a bluff by 3-betting before the flop. Instead of calling, ace high suit calls then, and then as played. So imagine this player calls, we obviously squeeze, which is the correct action, and we see a call. And now what happens with ace, king, queen, 10? And the answer is it's always a call unless he has a queen high suit. The queen high suit folds, and even the king high suit calls, but the queen high suit, which is this precise hand, goes ahead and folds. So basically the answer would be 3-bet before the flop, much better than calling, and then versus a squeeze, fold to the queen high suit and don't get involved. And, you know, making these two mistakes, I don't know what, it's, I guess because we ran it twice, it shows it that way. But this kind of like small deviation in this specific case cost him like $5,000 essentially. Getting then the flop and obviously losing twice. Next hand. So we're looking here, rewatching some of the biggest hands that I've played in 2021. Aces again. So far 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4 biggest hands all feature ace, ace. We'll see what happens. 3-bet aces. So far so good. My opponent calls. Are we going to flop top set? No, it's top set and then not flush draw. This guy only gets aces. This is the tough spot, Mr. Shadow Maniac. What are we going to do, huh? What are we going to do in the 3-bet pot with top set, not flush draw here? I think we should just go 1/3, basically. We could even check. Like, if we had, like, ace, ace, king with the ace, king of clubs, like, maybe we check. But in this case, we have no straight draw blocker, and we have no king of clubs and jack of clubs and 10 of clubs and so on. We have no, like, king, jack of spades, king, 10 of spades, queen, x of spades blocker. Like, we just want to bet, like, small. Yeah, I like this. This is like a 3rd pot size bet. This could be a good lesson when to slow play out of position. Yeah, I don't really think this... I don't think any hand, honestly, is slow playing on an ace-high board in a 3-bet pot. But let's figure it out. This is ace, queen, 5, right? The ace is not suited. So if we go into 3-bet pot, small blind versus button, give me an ace-high board. Maybe something like ace, king, 5. What else? Ace, queen, 6. Yeah, ace, queen, 6. Are we ever slow playing? It's just 0%, you know, like there is no slow play in place. If we do have aces plus nut flush draw, we're just always going to bet small. Like there's just no slow playing on an ace high board. It would just be suspicious. Like every single hand is betting here. So we bet, opponent calls, turn is a 3. Is it time to trap? What do you guys think? Should we check on the turn now? Open up the trap, like the backdoor hearts are missing. Like, is my opponent really gonna try to bluff on a 3 of spades? It seems relatively unlikely, but I think it's a reasonable spot to actually slow play the turn. Let's have a look what PLO Trainer thinks about this. So if we bet half pot, which is obviously larger, and the turn is like a low offsuited card, like a 5 maybe. Yeah, and in this spot, there's no like small betting. So I would imagine that top set, not flush draw, is slow playing a good amount. Yes, 80% slow playing if the only bet size we use would be full pot, which I think this SBR is exactly 2. So I think actually in this SBR and this turn card, we could also bet a small sizing, like 700 or so, and use some bluffs and some merge hands to do it as well. So I think either check or bet something like 700 is fine. Let's have a look what is going to happen here. We bet half pot. It's kind of big. I mean, I don't really know if this guy is a recreational player or not. Like, it could also depend on that. He calls again. River is the nuts on the jack of clubs. Is it time to finally slow play, guys? What do you think? 6-5 is much different or no? Yeah, it is definitely a little bit different for sure. I would say in this case here, given that we are not blocking any of the straight draws on the flop, I kind of like betting on the turn 700. We don't block king jack 10 at all. We don't block queen queen. Don't block all these like high flush draws that are going to continue to turn against like a $700 bet if he has like the king high flush draw and a straight draw. So I think on the turn I like to see 700. River does bring a straight. So I think the issue with jamming the river is that it's going to be very tough for me to have a lot of bluffs. I could have some bluffs, but I would basically jam a hand like the king of clubs, you know, maybe ace king with the king of clubs, maybe a hand like king king 5-4 with the king of clubs. Let's have a look if we somewhat replicate this. I mean, no, we are only potting on this turn card here that rolls off. And I would imagine on all these like blank turn cards, we're only potting and not betting small. Could obviously run a sim on this as well quickly, but it's not worthwhile. I think I would say that I kind of prefer checking. We'll see what happens. I go all in, opponent calls. Holy shit. Well, I'm very happy I went all in, I guess. 10-10, 5-5, baby. $10,000 pot. What do you guys think? GTO call down or not? It's pretty interesting, you know. I think actually this player is a really good player when I think back about the hand. And I was definitely surprised to see this hand calling down. And maybe I even ran a sim about this afterwards, but probably not. Interesting spot for sure. But in general, like I would not recommend calling this hand down in your game, basically. Let's head over to the next hand. Oh, spoiler alert. So here we're looking at kings pre-flop, playing heads up, another 25-50. Oh yeah, I guess this player was extremely loose because King 3-4 is not a hand you want to 4-bet heads up at all. Let's have a look. Pre-flop, cash game heads up, 100 big blinds, you know. So if we go into categories and we go into one pair single suited and we go to Broadway pairs, like the weakest Broadway pairs you want to 4-bet heads up would be like ace king essentially. Ace queen queen, ace jack jack. But if you don't have an ace, like if you remove the ace, we're never going to 4-bet ever. So king 4-3 is a very straightforward call. But this guy has to be like really crazy. Like I'm not really playing heads up anyway. So for me to be playing heads up in the first place, like this guy has to be a pretty bad player. So obviously we 4-bet because of that only. Opponent calls, donks the flop, and we get it in, which is fine on this texture. We do blocks a little bit of things, a few things here, unblock 10-9 and so on. We're not happy about the flop, but there's too much money in the middle, 2,700 already. So look. Yeah, he has 3,600 behind, or we have 3,400 behind. It's an easy all-in. And in this case, my opponent has a beautiful king 7-6-4 rainbow. So obviously, kind of shows why I was 4-betting in the first place. But unfortunately, we do not connect running at one time here and lose against the king 7-4. The king 7-6-4 rainbow. Unlucky. Next hand, king 8-7, we raise, we get a caller, another caller, we flop a gutter, the second nut flush draw. We're all like close, like about 100 big blinds deep, effective for myself. So I should just check the flop here. Everyone checks. I should check the turn. I hate this. This is terrible. Now we get raised. Oh my fucking god. So we get raised full pot on the turn. So like this player is probably going to have 10-10 really often, and I have like a break-even call, which is okay. You know, I can call, I can river a spade, I can river a straight, I can river a king. It's unfortunate that on the king, it's going to be like, I'm not going to be able to really value bet on a king, I think. So all in all, this is not a great spot. It's going to yield, it's going to end up being a break-even call when I call here, which I will. But I think the turn bet is a pretty big mistake. So we call. I mean, come on, man. This makes it relatively easy to value bet now. Not that he should have a lot of nut flushes anyway when he checks back flop, but could have some. Thanks for the subs, by the way, guys. FFF1212 and Togagilov. All in, call 10-10 jack 7 with the 10 of spades. Yeah, I don't like this. Like holding the 10 of spades is not as much of a relevant blocker. Like I'm going to have king, queen, jack of spades really often. So what do you think about the river call? I don't know, man. When I call a pot-sized turn bet, a pot-sized turn raise, I would need like a massive straight draw and a flush blocker, which I will have sometimes, but I think it's a little bit optimistic to call river than with the 10 of spades. I think a jack of spades might be better. We win a nice pot. Let's continue. Queen jack 7-6. This is now, what is this? This is 25-50. I would imagine this player is, again, another like really bad player for me to consider continuing here. At 100 big blinds, we would call with the queen and the jack high suit. At 50 big blinds, we just straight up fold. So we call. So this tells me that this player probably wasn't a great player for me to consider calling. And now we are in disaster land. We face a squeeze from the big blind and we are in absolute position. And I do think that we probably want to call here. Yeah. So we call, this guy calls. So what is happening here? We called. We are actually folding queen jack 7-6 in this spot. Our suits are just so garbagey that we are going to fold in this case. So we should actually fold. And I have no idea how I'm involved now in this hand. Let's have a look what happens. I guess everyone checks. Yeah, I mean, pre-flop, you know, like what can you expect in a four-way pot from like these suits and this level of connectivity? It's like not good stuff. Like not good stuff will happen. Don't like it. We should have I mean, the preflop cold call could be fine. It depends on like how loose this guy is and how bad this guy is. But then facing the squeeze, we should fold. It's a good reminder. Turn is a deuce. Check, check, check. We check. And the river is, of course, a 4. That's why we called preflop. Everyone checks. And what are we going to do with the absolute nuts? 7 high straight. I will probably go ahead and bet half pot and get called by 5 high straight reasonably often and always by a 6 high straight. I think in a 4-way pot, like even a 6 high straight against a pot size bet should fold pretty reasonably often. So I don't necessarily like this sizing. It's kind of a weird sizing. Maybe I made it dependent on the players in play. So the squeezer calls and shows down ace, ace, 6, 10. So only a set of aces basically. Is this good enough in a 4-way pot to hero call river? I mean, first of all, I don't think at all this hand should be a slow play on the flop without a backdoor flush draw or 2 backdoor flush draws. Like the threat of running into some backdoor shit is too high. So I probably wouldn't slow play this hand on the flop and just bet. Slow playing get punished. These spots seem to be a little bit wild in Trainer. Yeah, it could be if we go to some very unusual notes. At the moment, we're like rerunning a lot of the pre-flop sims in Monker Solver 2 to get to some like more accurate solutions in that end. But I actually think that this is not a call pre-flop, honestly. Like Queen Jack 7-6 against the squeeze in a spot where we know it's going to go 4 ways. Like what can we really expect? If we had better connectivity, I think then the suits don't matter as much, but you need some sort of nutted characteristic in order to play a low SPR 4-way spot. Even if we are in position, I think the position matters less in an SPR 1 spot on the flop than the level of nuttiness you can bring to the table for a 4-way pot. And Queen Jack 7-6 is just really low in nuttiness, so I think that we should just fold. Yeah, the small blind cold calls affects this a lot for sure, because the small blind's cold calling range is extremely narrow and very nutted. And obviously EP's RFI raise calling range is also just going to dominate my hand so much, you know. So 10-10-3-3, button raises. We are sitting on, what is this, 75 big blinds or so? 72, 73 big blinds. Like it loads the hand so weird. Let me just reopen it. Okay, so we 3-bet and we get a cold caller from the big blind and a caller from the button. If we have a quick glance at 100 big blind strategy here in this spot, button opens, we're in the small blind, and we look into double paired, double suited, 94% 3-bets. And if we compare this with PLO, with 50 big blind strategy, we'll probably see a little bit less 3-betting, 58% 3-betting. So 10-10-3-3 double is a, so the thing is, let me just look at this hand. So the thing is, a lot of players that play this stack size, so in this case, like 75 big blinds, like they open the button like way too close to 50% instead of opening somewhere along the lines of like 40%. And you can expand a little bit by 3-betting, for example, 10-10-3-3, double suited, obviously. But you could also call in the spot. Like it depends a little bit. Like if the big blind is a massive whale, maybe you want to call. If the button open raises 35%, maybe you want to call as well. If the button opens 56%, you probably want to 3-bet. Flop is 10-9-5, obviously amazing. Actually, I did review this hand together with D. Boris. And what do you guys think we should do on the flop? Like we ran like 3-way sims for this one. And this hand is not strong enough to slow play. And this board does not feature any small bets at all. Like 10-9-5 rainbow is just too good connected to justify betting small and then folding against any sort of action with $3,000 behind. So the correct action here is just pot. There are enough open-enders and pairs and backdoor flush draw combos that will all call it off. But a lot of those hands, a lot of the bare open-ended straight draws and so on, like they might just check behind if I check myself, especially if we face passive opponents. So me potting here is the way to go. My opponent jams, we call, we look down at 7-7-5-5, lol. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously pretty pure. Set over set, my opponent's pretty much dead. There are so many hands that have like 42%, 45%, 48% equity against my hand, but not this one. This hand has only 6.7% equity. Next hand here, we are looking at ace, 9-8. We 3-bet, we get called, top set, and a pair blocker, backdoor flush draw. I think on this board, we probably are looking to bet really large. We don't block jack 10 king. We don't block a single heart. We don't block the queen, so my opponent can have pocket queens. My opponent can have a hand like a straight and a flush draw in combination, and we can extract a lot of value, basically. So I'm betting a half pot. I think it's better to bet full pot. And you can be bet folding hands. It's just like ace king with the king of hearts is like a good hand to be bet folding. Even ace king jack with like the jack of hearts could be a hand that could be just like potting and then folding versus jam, and then mixing in a hand like this one as well. Even a hand like king with the king of hearts could be a hand that could be potting here, especially if you have like a straight draw king 10. King of hearts is a hand that could be potting and then folding versus jam. Opponent calls, turn is a 10. I mean, that's not good or great. I don't know. I mean, this is kind of weird. Like I have to decide if I want to bet small for value or if I want to check. I mean, I don't have a king or a jack, obviously, right? But I also don't have a heart. So it's kind of, I also don't have a queen. So like queen jack 10, king 10 with hearts. Like there are a lot of combos in here that I need protection from. And the question is, do I get value from those hands by checking and then check jamming or check calling, or do I want to bet myself? And I think ultimately I just want to bet myself here because I'm never going to get away from my hand anyway, given that I have no heart. And also blocking jack 8. Yeah, I just want to see myself bet, but I didn't, and my opponent bets 900. And honestly, at this point, the thing is, if my opponent does have blockers like pocket kings or pocket jacks somehow, they will always come along with, or almost always with hearts as well, like the flush draw. So I actually prefer just going all in now. But I think I remember this hand I called, which I don't like. And then on the river, we face an all in now. What do you guys think about this one? I guess fold is plus EV. So fold is always 0 EV. Just like talking more technically, like if you fold, like EV stands for expected value, right? Like what is your expected value when you fold? Like how much do you expect to take home when you fold here? And obviously the answer is nothing. Like you don't take anything home. Like you're not going to take any dollar in the middle. Like none of the dollars in the middle will be in your stack when you fold. That's why folding is 0 EV. And you know, a lot of these spots are very close to 0 EV when you call here. Because you're like hoping he's bluffing. Obviously, you don't beat any of the value hands. And if your opponent is structuring his bluffing range appropriately, you know, and we don't have the best blockers, then we are like close to 0 EV. But I think in this case, unblocking the hearts and also blocking jack 8, I think we have a very reasonable call. Like we should make a good amount of money calling here. And when I say a good amount of money, like there are $3,200 in the middle, right? And 5.5K with his bet. Like we might take home like 10-20% of the pot, and like maybe not more, you know. Like we're exposing ourselves to a lot of variance, but we still have to call because we're still going to make a few $100s in the process of calling. So we still need to call, but it's not going to be an amazing spot, you know. Opponent shows up with the jack 10 deuce, and we win, you know. And the thing of it is that jack are just the absolute nut blockers here from our opponent. Even way better than pocket kings. So I think that this hand is like it just has to go ahead and bluff the turn and bluff the river. It just like has to do it. But preflop is definitely a little bit loose to like raise call on the button there. That's it. I'm out for the day, guys. Hope you have enjoyed some of the action, and good luck at the tables. As always, if you want to check out anything about Pot Limit Omaha, check out the PLO Mastermind, plmastermind.com.